Okay, we saw an example of exploiting Windows 10 with a simple Trojan. We also saw an example of most simple phishing attack. But now, let's see how it looks like when we exploit an unpatched vulnerability, and you will see this can be rather dangerous. The main reason why this can be rather dangerous is because you will see right now how easy this can be achieved. So anyone with a little bit of knowledge can perform these attacks if they want to. So what we're going to do in this video is we're just going to demonstrate how to exploit target system if it has an unpatched vulnerability. Now don't worry, you don't need to know exactly what is happening in the background, just watch the process. We're watching this from the perspective of a hacker, just to understand how easy this can be. And if you're interested in actually learning all of these methods of hacking different systems and different machines, make sure you check out the ZTM Complete Ethical Hacking Bootcamp. There we explain all of these attacks. Nonetheless, I have my vulnerable virtual machine running. Its IP address is 192.168.1.5. So what a hacker would usually do is they would run a simple scan onto this IP to figure out whether it has any open ports on that machine. If it does have open ports, the attacker would usually go through the results of this scan, figure out what services are running on those open ports, and perhaps figure out whether they have been patched or maybe they have an existing vulnerability because the owner of that machine forgot to patch those services. Now, this particular machine that we're attacking is purposely made vulnerable, so we already know that there will be couple of vulnerabilities here. So here are the results of port scan with a tool called Nmap. And once again, if you have never encountered this, it can be rather confusing, but don't worry, you don't have to do anything throughout this lecture, just sit back and watch this demonstration. Now, let's start off with a simple vulnerability which results because owner of the target machine didn't update the default password. And in this particular exploit, we're going to target VNC, which is running on port 5900 over TCP. We can see that the port is open, and we can also see which protocol is it running. Now, an attacker would usually use a tool to run his exploits, and in this case, let me just enlarge this so we can see it. We're going to use a tool called MSF Console to launch our exploit. And this is pretty much where the main danger comes from. See, the attacker doesn't really have to know what these exploits do. He only needs to know how to use them in order to successfully perform this attack. This is dangerous because someone with just a little bit of knowledge can perform this attack without actually knowing what they are doing. The MSF console has opened up, and for this particular exploit, we're going to use this module. Auxiliary, scanner, scanner for VNC, and we're going to use VNC login module. So we're going to try to log in over VNC. Let's see our available options, and pretty much everything we need to specify right here in order to run this module is the rhosts, and rhosts is just an IP address of the target machine. It will then use a password file supplied by this tool to try brute force the password of the target service. We can see the path to which file it is using, and right now, if we only set rhosts to the target IP and we click run, that's about it. It took half a second for this exploit to finish. It says starting VNC login sweep, and just a moment later we get login successful with the password. So the target didn't change the password. So what we can do right now is we can use this password to access the target system. Let me show you how you can do that. You can simply run a tool called Remina, which will open this small window, and here all we have to do is select VNC, so not SSH, not RDP, we want to go VNC, and we're pretty much going to be able to get remote desktop on the target machine. We press IP, it asks for the password. We already know because of this module that the password is password. We press enter, and here is the terminal to the target machine. Now, it might be in a little smaller letters, so you might not be able to see it that easily, but this is pretty much a terminal on the target machine. If I run ifconfig, I can see the IP address of the target machine, which is 192.168.1.5. I can type who am I, which will tell me that I am root. So I pretty much have the root access on this target machine. You see how easy this was. Let's show another example of exploiting a vulnerable machine. So we're going to clear this and let's choose a different service, and for this let's use port 139, which is running Samba, this particular version. And what an attacker can do is they can just copy this version that they discovered, go on to Google, paste the version, and once they search this specific version, they might have something like this pop up. Samba username mapscript command execution, which is a vulnerability probably for this particular version that we googled. The attacker can then check which version it targets by reading the description of the exploit. We figure out that this exploit is actually in this MSF console tool, so we can load it straight away just by using these commands. So let's do it right now. Use exploit multi Samba, and then the name of the script, which is usermap script. We can type show info in order to read more about this. So it says this module exploits a command execution vulnerability in Samba version 3.0.20 through 3.0.25 when using the non-default usermap map script configuration option. And if we check which options we need to set in order to run this exploit, it only asks for the rhosts, which is once again the IP address of the target machine. So we can type set rhosts 192.168.1.5, type run, wait for a couple of seconds, and we get command shell session 1 opened on the target machine. Now you will notice nothing really popping up, but if I type who am I, once again, I get the response that I'm root on the target machine. I can confirm by typing ifconfig, which will give me the IP address of 192.168.1.5, which is exactly the IP address of this virtual machine, or should I say vulnerable virtual machine. And this was just a demonstration of two different exploits. Of course, in real life, it would be much harder to exploit target system because it's highly unlikely that it contains this many vulnerabilities that this vulnerable virtual machine that we targeted had, but you still get the point. Sometimes it can be rather easy to exploit a machine. That's why it's important we learn how to protect ourselves against these types of vulnerabilities. So in the next lecture, let's talk about how we can prevent vulnerabilities.